Okay, that settles it. My hair is officially annoying me now. Un moment, s'il vous plaît, mes amis. Really? Nope, not this time. Gotta say, I kinda saw this one coming. In my previous video, I talked about item design and balance decisions when it comes to video games, and I used Hitman Woe as my main point of reference, as that's largely what I play, and most definitely what you lot are here to see. A few comments on the video, as well as online, made by other players, had me look into an item that has caused some rumblings in the Hitman community of it being overpowered, or worse than the Durian, the Oil Canister. By complete coincidence, this new item was released the same day as my original video. As a sidebar, IO had a content drought in September, so the roadmap was not exactly fresh in my mind all the time. It was not intentional, I just forgot that the Oil Canister was even releasing that day. This is why a steady stream of content is better than just back-ending all your content for 1 month. This may surprise people, or not, depending on how much you play Hitman, but the Oil Canister isn't all that new. It was previously Freelancer exclusive throughout all of 2023 and most of 2024, a bit like the Proximity ICA Taser. From the reactions when it was revealed back then, it was actually considered to be fine by players. It wasn't particularly controversial. So, to get to the bottom of this somewhat delayed worrying, let's run through the item stats and see what's gone players' feathers ruffled. The Oil Canister is a jerry can that lets the player pour out a single oil spill that can be ignited by sparks, either via shooting it with specific guns or with sparking devices like the aforementioned Proximity Taser. This counts as an accident kill, much like igniting an oil drum would in-game. It can also be used as a melee item, much like the briefcase, and it can be shot at to explode, which again will count as an accident kill. The downside, which seems to have gone unmentioned, is that pouring from the Oil Canister is an illegal action regardless of disguise. A bit of a side note, it's the action of doing it initially. I'm not quite sure why the actual pouring is not illegal. Anyway. This, right here, is what makes it balance. It cannot be used publicly. You have to pour it out in advance, and have to distract your target to lead them to the puddle, which is easier said than done half the time, especially in the base game. Even if you use the Durian or the Psyker to seclude them and make an oil puddle in the toilet for an easy secluded accident kill, that still requires a ton of waiting around, bringing in specific items to make this work, and more importantly, some decent map knowledge and predicting where the AI will take your target to throw up. Like, there is nuance here that seems to be getting ignored in favour of it's a gas canister but in your inventory, when that's only half the story here. I can see why people think it's powerful. Hell, I just gave you a fairly cheesy scenario you can do in-game, using an emetic weapon to enhance the power of it. But the problem here is that emetic weaponry synergizes with everything. Wait, what do you mean everything? Everything! And there is no better example of this than in Freelancer, where the Collector Edition Freelancer tools, which persist if you fail a campaign, contains a Psycho 1. That is the developer equivalent of saying, yes, we know the Emetic Meta is busted and too useful for you to go without, so here's our compromise if you fail. We'll let you keep it. Conditions apply, please do not apply onto bare skin. For the record, I still think CEFTs are still a compromise in and of themselves. It just makes Freelancer unnecessarily difficult if you fail, but that's out of scope for this conversation. The Oil Canister requires other devices to be useful, which isn't inherently a problem when it comes to game balance. If anything, that should be encouraged. Variety is the spice of life, and more spices is seldom a bad thing. Just don't overdo it. Now, usually I'd say that you need to play around for a lot longer than a few hours to get a feel for the new character or item, or say a rework for a character's abilities when they change from a flanker to a support or whatever. But the Oil Canister has been around for almost 2 years now, and hasn't raised the same complaints until being added to the base game a year and a half later. Hell, an exploit was found that lets you get out of bounds, but as far as I can tell, this was only discovered these past few weeks, which says to me that players really didn't use the Oil Canister that much in Freelancer to begin with. despite the silent assassin rating essentially being sidelined. I strongly suspect it's for all the reasons I said. It requires secondary devices or weapons to use effectively, and it can't really be used publicly. I did try and find a way to make it more cheesy or overpowered, as people feared it would be. Hello, Ludmilla. You're going to be my guinea pig for this, mostly because you spawned close to 47. I placed down a remote concussive duck and the oil canister on the first part of a routine, and it broke SA, weirdly. I don't know why either, to be honest. Oh yeah, prepare for a lot of ragdolling, I should have warned you. I then moved on and replaced the concussive duck with an explosive duck, and that also broke SA, and launched Ludmilla straight into an occluder, making her disappear briefly. I replaced the duck with a remote breaching charge, and that just didn't work. Ludmilla just called a bodyguard who called another guard, and that was a bust. I tried a micro remote explosive instead of a breaching charge, and
good work, 47. Ludmilla Vetrova.
Neither attempt worked here. I tried to make the explosive not too near the oil canister to avoid an explosive kill, and that just didn't go to plan no matter what I did. Aside from the funny ragdolls, there's really nothing of value to this specific setup, and I dare say it's kinda pointless to boot considering how few targets are so open like this. Then, 3 hours later, while I was brushing my teeth, I had a bit of a brainwave. Why don't I put the breaching charge inside the briefcase? Ludmilla should still get attracted to it and not get killed by the charge. Also that I had toothpaste in my mouth and I needed to spit it out. And this finally worked.
Good work, 47. Ludmilla Vetrova has been permanently retired.
It was both silent, retained SA, and it didn't make any of the guards hostile. It wasn't very impressive when it came to ragdolling, though. For a lark, I also did the same thing with the oil puddle, and weirdly, the briefcase couldn't be seen by Ludmilla or her bodyguard. Best guess is that something about the puddle is causing the briefcase to be invisible to people. Now, you may be thinking that this is proof that the oil canister is OP, except that, as of right now, it's fairly unintuitive to do this strat. First, you need to enter in a non-disguised entrance with the oil canister in a briefcase. For some reason, the oil canister can't be taken on 47's person unless you do this, so you can't start as a surgeon and kill sodas that way, for example. Second, you have to bring in a remote breaching charge either via a dead drop or as one of your 3 slots. Even if you reverse this and place the oil canister in a dead drop and bring in the breaching charge with you in the briefcase, you still have to find the damn thing, so there's map knowledge involved here. And if you're going for a specific route, you need to make sure that you can get to those stashed items in time before you lose your chance for several minutes. This is not fast, is where I'm getting at. Third, because you've taken at least one item required for this strategy, and a briefcase, you now have to make sure the other tools and guns you bring in are useful in other parts of your run, or you find what you need in the field. Fourth, probably the most important, you need to make sure your target is both isolated and not being tailed by a posse of guards, as can be seen here when I killed both Ludmilla and her bodyguard by accident. Also, make sure there's no water nearby.
Good work, 47.
That one's on me. Look, this is clearly powerful, but I don't think this constitutes this item being overpowered, not least because the setups involved take a long time to take effect. Ludmilla is an extreme example I'm using to demonstrate things. You can't do this everywhere. Novikov, for example, is in public almost all the time. Less so for Daria, but she does have conversations with others that need to be accounted for. You have to isolate them, which requires other tools. That, in itself, isn't bad, but it can become problematic if certain items to make such strats work are already seen as controversial or overpowered. That's when it becomes an issue. The Emetic Meta engulfs everything. I made an entire video about that. Go watch it. So, here's my lesson for the day. Powerful strategies by themselves are not overpowered. Do not conflate the two ideas. They are mutually exclusive. Actually overpowered weapons, characters, abilities, what have you, tend to be very easy to spot from their statistical makeup. If you run down the game's logic for your chosen powerful item, and a lot of it contradicts what you'd expect any other similar item to be like, then yeah, it probably is overpowered and definitely worth making a stink about. If it doesn't, then it just isn't an issue, or at least one not worth the time dealing with immediately. The Jurian is overpowered because it contradicts and power creeps similar items out of usefulness. No more fart cases, no more gas vials, no more emetic grenades. Not even the Cycle 1 can match out half the time for effectiveness. Throwing the Jurian in full view of someone is considered non-suspicious, which breaks away from the other items' design language and is just a bad item to have around, as, while it's not a guaranteed kill, it certainly cuts some corners in the puzzle aspect of the gameplay. To me, that is much more problematic to gameplay than an oil canister that requires specific setups and scenarios to work. As I demonstrated, yes, you can make the oil canister cheesy, but it's a hell of a rigmarole to do this, and as I said earlier, it's not exactly something you can pull off quickly in 90% of levels. When it comes to game balance, exercise caution before you point the finger, and start to j'accuse, sir. And with that, I thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
2 more to locate. Director Savalas eliminated. Good work, 47.
Hello.
Patient unresponsive.
Soda's down.
Patient
To be
deceased.
honest, I'm not sure what to feel about this one. Well, that's for another time. Yamazaki awaits.